we used to have a dog called Penny, and she was a very bad dog, and she'd come and sit on my pillow when she was wet. And the smell of that wet dog on my pillow was something that, to me, was very special. And it reminds me of being young and having lots of time.
It's the smell of cut grass, and it's summer, and it's that time of the day which means that you can stay out and play later because it stays light for longer, and I'm on my bicycle and I'm enjoying being out when normally I shouldn't be out at all.
The first bunch of rain after a long dry season, hot and dry in Zambia, which is where I'm from. And in November comes this, thunder and the clouds gather, and then the rain falls, and you can smell this fresh, the soil getting wet, basically. And it reminds me of being back home and smelling that, and being young and playing out in the rain.
The smell I remember is of Vicks Vapor Rub, which is something that was given to me whenever I had a thick, heavy cold when I was a small boy, and I couldn't smell anything at all, but I could smell that, and I used to stick my nose right into the little pot and sniff it. And it reminds me of having thick cotton pyjamas stuck to my chest when I went to bed, and snuggling down under the bedclothes and thinking that I would be a bit better the next day.
The memory of chlorine at the swimming baths as a strong, strong smell, and I think that that's a smell that I associate with my father and going on trips as a kid to swimming baths that were so full of chlorine they'd almost knock you sideways as you entered in. And the sense of being very, very skinny in slightly ill-fitting bathing trunks and shivering, and the moment that I still remember in any times of fear, the moment of trying to decide to jump into the water that was always just a little too cold. And so that's something that clicks in whenever I smell chlorine, even if it's not in a swimming bath or even if the water is actually warm.
I fondly remember the smell of bacon being cooked, because I grew up on top of a greasy spoon cafe where my parents used to work downstairs, and we were raised Muslim and we weren't allowed to eat pork, but I used to always like the smell of it. And I remember as I got older having some bacon and sort of having it when my parents were out. And although I'm now vegetarian, I fondly remember that smell. I actually like the smell. I can't eat it, but I like the smell, and it just kind of takes me back to having to challenge my culture.
Mine's meat and onions and the smell of my father's cooking. And I knew it was that when I smelt it again when I went to Africa. So it's the smell of love. And the matching smell of that is actually stale sweat, armpits, which was the smell of my mother when she came in from work. So it was also the smell of love. They're both kind of round the flesh. They're both, one's appetizing, one is not. But for me, they both remind me of love.
The smell that I can remember is a smell of beer and fags that dads and boyfriends have when they come home from the pub. And it's always the same. It's whoever the boyfriend is, there's always this sort of smoky, beery smell, and they give you a big kiss, and it's like, but it's like, that's quite I know where I am.
It's a really heavy 70s perfume, which my mother used to get bought every birthday, every Christmas, Mother's Day, any other occasion, and it used to go down the toilet.
My mother's handbag, a makeup when I was little that if we went out she'd allow me to borrow, and the one piece of makeup was a lipstick, and I remember the smell of the waxy lipstick as I put it on my mouth, and it reminds me of wanting to be grown up and kind of magic time.
My smell is possibly Lynx aftershave, actually, which I don't like at all. It makes me feel quite sick, but it reminds me of my youth, of growing up in a small town called Salisbury, and lots of the boys would wear this horrible aftershave and think that it was really appealing to all the girls, but actually it wasn't. And it still isn't. And I see lots of adverts for Lynx on the TV these days, and it makes me think that men really shouldn't wear that aftershave.
I remember the smell of a man I was in love with. And actually, we knew each other for a couple of years, and I thought I was in love with him. And I remember the first time we really were close from each other, I realized I couldn't smell him, and it was awful. I can't describe it because English is not my language. It's really difficult to describe a smell. But then I eventually realized that this is something really important in a relationship.
My father used to use a perfume of CD, and I like this perfume quite much because it is a symbol of my father. But now, it means disgustingness. This means the scent of betrayal, and a scent of hurt, a scent of depression. And I hate it.
My smell is the smell of my baby's hair. But they're grown up now, or they're late teenagers, but I can still smell that sort of soft, fragrant meanness. It was just me and them. That was so delicious, completely delicious.
The smell I'm thinking of is dusty old records. My brother had a huge collection of records when I was growing up. He's 10 years older than me, and he kept them all in a built-in wardrobe. And I used to climb inside the wardrobe and play hide and seek when I was younger. And then one day I came home and my brother had left home without telling anyone, but he'd left his records behind, and I used to spend hours just sitting in the wardrobe because it smelt of my brother.
There was a girl that I went out with it was a few years ago when I was about 18, and I don't know which perfume it was, but whichever one it was that she wore, every so often I'll smell somebody else wearing it, like on the tube or in the street, and instantly kind of almost wonder if it's her.
I remember rummaging in my mother's handbag as a child for money, for sweets, but being struck by her headscarf, which smelt of cigarettes and perfume. And I remember when she died, I found that scarf, and it still smelt, even after all those years. So it still brought back that memory.
My smell that I remember is of pipe tobacco smoke. And I don't know what the brand is, but it's the one that my grandfather used to smoke. And he died when I was very young, so my memories of him are almost photographs, but this smell is an emotional memory of a very lovely man who died of cancer, sadly, kind of as a result of that smell.
And I think there's always one that, yes, is a poignant one, of course, is the smell of death. When my father died, he died at home, and before the undertakers came, there was in the room the smell of death, and you can't, the sort of sweetish smell, I mean, a strange smell, but you never forget it.